The banquet room at the Riverside Club was exactly what I'd expected for Dad's retirement party. Elegant without being ostentatious, filled with 40 years' worth of colleagues from the accounting firm where he'd spent his entire career. My family sat at the head table, bathed in the golden glow of the chandelier, celebrating the end of one chapter and pretending my presence wasn't an embarrassment to the other. "I still think it's a shame," my Aunt Linda said, loud enough for half the table to hear. "All those years of medical school, all that money, and for what?" My brother David smiled, that particular smile he'd perfected over the years, the one that managed to be both sympathetic and condescending. "Sarah's finding her path. Aren't you, sis?" I took a sip of water. "Something like that." "You could have been a real doctor," David continued, his voice carrying that edge he always got after his second scotch. "Instead you do." "What exactly?" The table went quiet. Mom set down her fork with a soft clink, her expression pained. "David, not tonight." "No, it's a fair question," he interrupted. "I'm genuinely curious. You graduated from Johns Hopkins, top of your class I might add, did your residency at Mass General and then just disappeared into some research lab nobody's ever heard of. Meanwhile, I'm chief of surgery at St. Catherine's and people actually know what I do. I save lives." "David," Dad said quietly, but there was no real reproach in his tone. Mom nodded slowly, her eyes meeting mine with that familiar mixture of disappointment and concern. "Such wasted potential. You could have had David's career. Instead you're, what did you call it? A research fellow." "Principal investigator," I corrected gently. "Right." David leaned back in his chair. "Principal investigator at the Whitmore Institute. Which I had to Google, by the way, because nobody in the medical community has heard of it. What do you even research?" "Rare diseases that affect 3 people worldwide." Uncle Tom chimed in helpfully. "I heard she works with cancer patients." "Is that right, Sarah?" "Oncology research," I confirmed. David laughed. "See, that's the thing. Oncology research. Not oncology. Not actually treating patients, not performing surgeries, not making a real difference. You're in a lab somewhere, writing papers nobody reads, applying for grants that probably don't get funded." I checked my phone calmly. 20 minutes. The timing was perfect. "I read an article," my cousin Jennifer said, trying to be supportive, "about how important research is. How it leads to breakthroughs and stuff." "Eventually," David said. "Maybe. After decades of failed trials and wasted resources. Meanwhile, I performed 17 surgeries this month. 17 people who went home to their families because of me. That's real medicine." The waiter arrived with the main course. Filet mignon with roasted vegetables, elegant plating, the kind of meal that cost $200 a plate. David had insisted on the best for Dad's retirement. "I'm not saying research doesn't have value," David continued, apparently unable to let the subject drop. "I'm saying Sarah had the skills, the talent, the potential to be an actual physician. Instead, she chose obscurity." "Not everyone needs recognition," I said softly. "No, but everyone needs purpose." He cut into his steak with surgical precision. "And I just wonder if you've found yours, that's all. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you walked away from everything you could have been." Dad cleared his throat. "Sarah's always been independent. Different. Even as a child, she preferred books to people." "I liked people fine," I said. "I just didn't need to be the center of attention." David raised his glass. "Well, here's to Dad's retirement. 40 years of hard work, dedication, and making a real impact in the world. That's what success looks like." Everyone raised their glasses. I did too, watching the ice cubes shift in my water. The television mounted in the corner of the banquet room had been playing quietly all evening. A news station on mute, mostly ignored by the guests. But I'd been tracking it peripherally, waiting. And then it happened. The screen changed. The CNN logo appeared with the red breaking news banner. And even though the sound was off, the headline scrolling across the bottom was perfectly clear. "Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine awarded to Dr. Sarah Hughes for revolutionary cancer treatment." The anchor's face filled the screen, animated and excited. Behind her, my official photo from the Whitmore Institute appeared. The one taken 6 months ago that I'd thought made me look too serious. I saw the exact moment David noticed. His eyes flickered to the TV, then away, then back. His face went pale. "That's," Jennifer started. The wine glass slipped from David's hand and shattered on the floor, red wine spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. The restaurant's TV suddenly showed breaking news. Dr. Sarah Hughes wins Nobel Prize for breakthrough cancer treatment. The entire banquet room had gone silent now. Every guest, every waiter, everyone staring at the television and then at me. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Sarah. The screen changed to footage. My laboratory at the Whitmore Institute, images of clinical trials, graphics showing the molecular structure of the treatment I'd developed. The anchor was speaking animatedly, though we couldn't hear the words. Dad stood up slowly, his eyes moving from the screen to me and back again. That's you. On the news. They're saying. My phone rang. The caller ID showed. Mayo Clinic Dr. Patricia Chin, director. I answered on speaker, setting the phone on the table. Dr. Hughes. Sarah. Dr. Chen's voice was jubilant. I've been trying to reach you for the past hour. The Nobel Committee made the announcement. I wanted to be the first to congratulate you, but I see they beat me to it. The table was frozen. David looked like he might be sick. Thank you, Patricia, I said calmly. I appreciate you calling. Are you kidding? This is the biggest moment in modern oncology. The HX7 protocol is going to save millions of lives. The clinical trials have already shown a 94% survival rate in previously terminal cases. Sarah, you've essentially cured stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Mom made a choking sound. The committee wants to schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning, Dr. Chin continued. And the president's office called. She wants to personally congratulate you at the White House next month. Also, the licensing agreements for the treatment are being finalized. The preliminary numbers are showing potential revenue of. Sarah, are you sitting down? I'm at dinner with my family, I said. Oh. I'm sorry, I can call back. No, it's fine. What are the numbers? The pharmaceutical licensing alone is valued at $12 billion over the next decade. Your personal share, accounting for the Whitmore Institute's percentage and your individual patents, comes to approximately $3.7 billion. That's before speaking fees, consulting agreements, and the biotech company that wants you on their board. The silence at the table was deafening. We can discuss details tomorrow, I said. Of course. Again, congratulations, Dr. Hughes. You've changed the world. She hung up. I set the phone down gently. 42 eyes stared at me from around the table. David found his voice first, though it came out strangled. Nobel Prize. You won the Nobel Prize in medicine. Apparently, I said. For curing pancreatic cancer? Mom whispered. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer specifically. The HX7 protocol combines targeted gene therapy with a novel immunotherapy approach. We've been in clinical trials for 4 years. The results were published in The Lancet 3 months ago. Uncle Tom was fumbling with his phone. The Lancet? That's the most prestigious medical journal in the world. One of them, I agreed. Dad sat down heavily. Sarah, I don't understand. You never said anything. You never mentioned. You never asked, I said simply. Every time we talked, you wanted to know when I'd give up research and get a real job. So I stopped trying to explain. David was reading something on his phone, his face growing progressively more ashen. St. Catherine's Hospital just issued a press release. We're implementing your protocol. The HX7 treatment. We started trials 2 months ago. I nodded. You're one of 40 hospitals worldwide participating in Phase 4 trials. I approved the trial, he said faintly. I signed off on it. I didn't. The paperwork said Whitmore Institute. I didn't connect. There was no reason you would, I said. The Whitmore Institute is deliberately low profile. We focus on research, not publicity. Jennifer was still staring at the TV, where they were now showing patient testimonials. People with stage 4 pancreatic cancer who'd been given months to live, now in complete remission. You saved all these people's lives. My team did, I corrected. I led the research, but there were 67 scientists involved in the development process, plus hundreds of clinical staff, thousands of patients who participated in trials. But you developed it, Mom interrupted. The treatment. The cure. Yes. Aunt Linda's voice was small. We thought you were wasting your life. I know. The waiter appeared with a dustpan and towel, quietly cleaning up David's spilled wine. The rest of the banquet room had returned to their own conversations, but I could feel the surreptitious glances, hear the whispered explanations spreading through the crowd. That's her at the head table. The Nobel Prize winner. The doctor who cured pancreatic cancer. David was still reading from his phone, his hands shaking slightly. The American Medical Association is calling it the most significant breakthrough in oncology in 50 years. The WHO is recommending immediate global implementation. Sarah, this is my life's work, I finished quietly. Dad's eyes were wet. Why didn't you tell us? Why let us think? Think what, Dad? I met his gaze steadily. That I was failing? That I'd wasted my potential? You made those assumptions on your own. I was never failing. I was building something that mattered more than recognition or status or having people understand what I did at dinner parties. Mom reached for my hand, tears streaming down her face. We were so proud of David. So proud that he became chief of surgery. We talked about him constantly. And we thought you'd given up. I never gave up, I said. I just worked in a different arena. David saves 17 lives a month through surgery. That's remarkable. But my treatment will save 17,000 lives a month, globally, once it's fully implemented. The words hung in the air not as a boast but as a simple statement of fact. Uncle Tom was reading another article. It says here the Whitmore Institute is funded by. Sarah, did you fund your own research institute? Partially. I inherited some money from Grandma Catherine. Instead of buying a house or investing traditionally, I used it to establish the institute. It's grown since then through grants and pharmaceutical partnerships. How much did you inherit? Jennifer asked. $4 million. David choked. Grandma Catherine left you $4 million? I got 50,000. She left it in trust with specific instructions that it be used for medical research, I explained. The trust was contingent on my completing my medical degree and residency. She believed I had potential. And you turned $4 million into a research institute that developed a Nobel Prize-winning treatment, Dad said, slowly processing. And a $3.7 billion personal fortune apparently, Aunt Linda added, still staring at her phone. I shrugged. The money was never the point. The point was the work. The Whitmore Institute, David repeated. I thought it was some small lab. How big is it actually? We employ 340 researchers across 3 facilities in Boston, San Diego, and Geneva. The operating budget is approximately $280 million annually, funded through a combination of NIH grants, pharmaceutical partnerships, and private donations. Mom was crying harder now. And we thought you were struggling. We thought you needed help. I never said I was struggling. But you live so modestly, she protested. That little apartment in Cambridge, the old car, the apartment is near the lab, I said. The car gets me where I need to go. I don't need luxury. I need time and resources to work. My phone buzzed with a text. Then another. Then a cascade of messages from colleagues, former professors, friends I hadn't spoken to in years. All congratulations. All variations of, I knew you could do it. The restaurant manager approached our table looking nervous. Dr. Hughes? I apologize for the interruption, but there are several reporters outside asking for a statement. Should I? Tell them I'll make a formal statement tomorrow, I said. Tonight is about my father's retirement. He nodded and retreated. Dad laughed, a sound somewhere between amazement and disbelief. My retirement party. I spent 40 years balancing books and my daughter cured cancer. I think she wins. It's not a competition, I said gently. Isn't it though? David's voice was quiet now, stripped of its earlier bravado. I've spent my entire career trying to be the best. Chief of surgery at 35. Youngest ever at St. Catherine's. And I lorded it over you because I thought. He stopped, swallowing hard. I thought I was better than you. More successful. More important. You are important, I said. You save lives every day through your skill as a surgeon. That matters enormously. But you saved more. I had different tools. Different opportunities. A grandmother who believed in me enough to fund my dreams. I paused. And a family whose disapproval motivated me to prove something if I'm being honest. Mom flinched. Sarah. It's okay, Mom. I'm not angry. I'm grateful actually. If you'd all been supportive from the beginning, if you'd praised my choices and made me feel validated, I might not have pushed so hard. I might not have stayed in the lab until 3 a.m. or run 500 trial variations or fought for funding when everyone else said the research was impossible. So we helped by doubting you? Dad asked, and there was real pain in his voice. You helped by setting a standard I refused to accept. David became chief of surgery and you all celebrated. I wanted that same pride. But I wanted to earn it my own way. Jennifer raised her glass, her hand trembling slightly. Then here's a new toast. To Dr. Sarah Hughes. Nobel Prize winner. Cancer cure developer. And the person who proved that quiet determination changes the world more than loud ambition ever could. The table raised their glasses slowly. David's hand shook as he lifted his water glass, the wine already cleaned away. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. For everything I said tonight. 4 years of dismissing your work. For making you feel like you had to prove anything to us. I didn't have to prove anything to you, I said. I proved it to myself. That was always the point. My phone rang again. This time it was the White House switchboard. I silenced it. You're not going to answer that? Uncle Tom asked incredulously. They can wait until tomorrow. Tonight is Dad's night. But Dad shook his head, smiling through tears. No, sweetheart. Tonight became your night the moment that news broke. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate my retirement than knowing my daughter just changed the world. The restaurant manager returned, this time with the owner. A distinguished man in his 60s who I recognized from medical fundraisers. Dr. Hughes, he said warmly, I couldn't leave without congratulating you personally. Your work at the Whitmore Institute has been extraordinary. My wife, she's in remission thanks to your clinical trials. The table went very still. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, he continued. Diagnosed 18 months ago. Given 3 months to live. She enrolled in your trial at Mass General. He's healthy now. Completely cancer-free. You gave me my wife back. His voice broke on the last word. I stood and embraced him. I'm so glad the treatment worked for her. Worked. He laughed wetly. It saved her life. It's saving thousands of lives. And now the whole world will know what I've known for over a year, that you're a miracle worker. When he left, I sat down to find my entire family staring at me with new eyes. That's real, Mom whispered. What you do. It's real and it's important and it saves actual people. Yes. And we made you feel like it didn't matter. You made me feel like I had to choose between your approval and my calling, I corrected gently. I chose my calling. I'd choose it again. David set down his phone. The hospital just scheduled an emergency board meeting. They want me to oversee the expansion of your protocol to all our oncology patients. Sarah, is that okay? Given everything. Of course. The treatment should reach as many patients as possible. That's the entire purpose. Will you come speak to our staff? Help us understand the protocol better. I considered. I can arrange a consultation. But David, you need to understand, I'm not doing this to prove anything to you anymore. I'm past that. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. He nodded slowly. I understand. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. The rest of the evening passed in a surreal haze. News crews set up outside the restaurant. Colleagues called with congratulations. The Nobel Committee sent a formal notification email. And my family, my doubting, disappointed family, slowly began to understand the magnitude of what I'd accomplished in the silence they'd mistaken for failure. When the party finally ended, Dad pulled me aside. I owe you an apology, he said. A real one. Not just for tonight but for years of making you feel like your choices were wrong. You were building something extraordinary and I was too focused on conventional success to see it. You wanted what you thought was best for me, I said. No, he corrected. I wanted what looked best to everyone else. There's a difference. He took my hands. Your grandmother knew. Catherine always said you had a gift, that you'd do something that mattered. I thought she was being sentimental. I was wrong. She believed in me when no one else did. She was smarter than all of us. He smiled sadly. I retired tonight after 40 years of service. I'll get a nice plaque, maybe some recognition from the firm. In 5 years no one will remember my name. But you'll be remembered for generations. You changed medicine. You saved lives. You made the world better. You made a life, I countered. You raised a family, built a career, provided stability. That matters too. It does, he agreed. But Sarah, you did both. You built an extraordinary career and you stayed true to yourself even when we made it difficult. That takes a kind of courage I'm not sure I ever had. We stood together in the parking lot watching the news vans circle like sharks. Tomorrow would bring press conferences, interviews, international attention. The Nobel Prize ceremony in Stockholm. Meetings with pharmaceutical executives and government officials. The full weight of changing the world. But tonight I had something simpler and more profound. My father's respect earned not through his definition of success but through my own. Come to the lab tomorrow, I said suddenly. Bring Mom. David too if he wants. I'll show you what I've been working on for the past 8 years. Let you see what mattered enough to risk your disappointment. Dad's eyes filled again. I'd like that very much. As I drove home in my old Honda Civic, paid off, reliable, perfect for my needs, I passed the news vans, the reporters standing in the cold waiting for a statement that wouldn't come until morning. My phone showed 247 unread messages. But I felt only peace. I'd won the Nobel Prize. I'd developed a treatment that would save millions of lives. I'd built a research institute that would continue advancing medicine long after I was gone. And most importantly, I'd done it all by staying true to who I was, regardless of who my family thought I should be. The wasted medical degree had changed the world. And maybe, finally, my family was beginning to understand that there are many ways to be a real doctor. And mine just happened to save the most lives.